right, but in the meantime, it's Thursday, just after 7:30. What does that mean, producer Jeff Fortier?
I was born in a small town, in a small town.
Time for our small town salute, as we would like to call this segment, our weekly excuse to shed our perimeter-itis, and want to talk about Manitoba's last remaining rail turntable in the birthplace of Canadian Northern Railway is scheduled to be removed forever.
That piece of railroading history is located in Dauphin, Manitoba. To help us learn more about the efforts to save this connection to a bygone era, we are joined on Small Town Salute by Jason Gilmore, president of the Dauphin Rail Museum. Jason, good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. How are you?
We're doing okay. I got to tell you, when I got your media release earlier this week, I was a little sad to hear that you were dealing with. Can you just, before we get into the turntable and its history, can you just tell us a little bit more about Dauphin overall and its incredible railway history?
Yeah, it dates back to 1896. That was the arrival of the first train, and it was a byproduct of William Mackenzie and Donald Mann, who eventually formed Canadian Northern Railway. But it all started with a little rail line that started in Gladstone, went to Dauphin, and eventually went to Winnipeg, Manitoba. And the idea was that they were looking at routes to ship grain to the UK all the way back then, and they were looking at Hudson Bay as a viable route to do so. So it's kind of apropos we're talking about that because that's top of mind even today with the U.S. tariffs and everything else going on.
So what is a rail turntable?
So it's basically a mechanism, primarily in the steam locomotive era. So, and Dauphin has a bit of history that's tied into Winnipeg there as well, if everybody's familiar with the locomotive 6043 that's in the Assiniboine Park. That was the last passenger steam locomotive to ever operate in Canada, and it's on its last run. It went from the Pas through Dauphin to Winnipeg. But steam locomotives were much more labor-intensive. So that device could rotate a locomotive when parked on at 360 degrees. There was what's called a roundhouse adjacent to that, which is basically a maintenance area for the steam locomotives. Dauphin still has that as well, and that was a 15-stall roundhouse. So, yeah, it was all harkened back to the steam locomotive era.
So, sorry, Brent. That roundhouse still exists in Dauphin, is that right?
Correct. So both were built in 1906. The city public workshops uses that building. When the railway kind of wanted to get rid of it, growers used it for a little bit, then Manitoba Hydro used it, I think, for 5-6 years, and then in the 1960s the city took it over. So it's always cool to repurpose buildings like that.
So then, with this rail turntable, why would anybody want to get rid of something so unique?
Well, and we've always understood this. It is an active work site, so we've been respectful of that. And even when we do indicate to people, we have a really incredible HO scale model railroad of Dauphin in 1954 in our museum, and then we can go out the door and point to where the roundhouse is. So if we send people out there currently, like it'd be on weekends or evenings, knowing it's an active work site. But we were kind of taken aback over the last 3-4 years, and I can get into the fuller history, but over the last 3-4 years, I've been really trying to get that property underneath our lease. Heard nothing, and then in December, just randomly, we were approached by the city and said, this is our intent to fully remove this artifact, which in 1993, 17 community members did get together. At that time, they were actual railroaders or former railroaders. They raised money. They purchased that site from CN, and then the city leased it back to Fort Dauphin Museum because our museum was not incorporated at that time. So the idea was that they saved that piece of heritage to be shown for future generations. So that's always been the thought. And then when we did have an in-person meeting with the city in December, we gave them a counter proposal that we thought was quite fair, that we thought ticked both boxes, gave them a little bit more room, kept the artifacts in situ. And that's the thing with anything historic related, you really want to try and keep it in its place of origin.
It's fascinating, not only the origins of this, the fact that the roundhouse still exists, and I think for a lot of people, they know what a roundhouse is, but the thing that I marvel at is that it's still functioning. So help me with this. So the turntable still lives inside in the roundhouse, Jason?
No, it's just outside. I don't know the actual parameters, but that was one of the issues the city was having, was they indicated that some of the machinery is getting a little bit larger. So it was, I won't say a nuisance, but, it's a little bit cumbersome. And so we had, our counter proposal was that turntable is in what's called a pit. It's basically bordered like concrete.
Sure.
We said, okay, the track portion is currently kind of in a 12-6 position. It could be rotated into a 3-9 position, and the portion of the pit that's closer to the building, that could be filled in, and it would give them a lot more room to move vehicles and such. But yeah, beyond that, we did go cross country and get 7 letters of support, thinking that would show the historical value and significance, and it still didn't move the needle.
So here we are, sitting here, and is the intention as we speak is for that turntable is going to go away, or what cards do you have left to play?
As far as I know, and that's the thing, right? We don't really have much in the way of cards other than advocacy and doing interviews like this. Currently, I thought we would start an online petition through change.org, and it's been really cool. Over a week, we've had 250 signers already. It's allowed connection, which I have an interview that I did yesterday on Zoom with the granddaughter of one of those 17 community members. She lives in Alberta. She found out about this and was not happy, and because of her father's legacy. And yeah, she just voicing the opinions of the value of this artifact. So it was neat to connect that way, and I'll be posting that later today.
Well, good for you for taking these steps to try to protect this piece of history. I didn't know that about the locomotive at Assiniboine Park, what you shared with us, that it was it the final passenger steam engine used?
Locomotive in Canada, which I don't know if the listeners are aware what they did in Transcona with that locomotive they have there. They did an amazing job at restoration, and it's got beautiful cover from the elements. This gives me an opportunity. That 6043 in Assiniboine Park really needs to be taken care of, and it's not currently. So just putting that out there.
Yeah, they've done an amazing job in Transcona. Is that the Countess of Dufferin or not?
No. I can't recall off the top of my head the number of that locomotive, but that was the first one, I believe, built in the Transcona shop.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well,
Yeah.
Jason,
2747, by the way, CN 2747 for that.
There you go. Yes.
Jason, thanks for this. Keep in touch with us. Let us know what's going on, and if you get some momentum here, and it looks like maybe you can change some minds in Dauphin, maybe we can nudge it along a little bit. If people want to get involved, how do they reach out?
I would say sign that petition on our Facebook page. The link, the hyperlink is there through change.org. Yeah, if they want to contact the city of Dauphin to make their feelings known, because at that point, that's all we have right now. Is just advocacy and trying to preserve this important piece of history.
Jason Gilmore, president of the Dauphin Rail Museum. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. This is really fascinating stuff.
Yeah, and thank you for the opportunity. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Jason, thank you very much for joining us. So once again, Manitoba's last remaining rail turntable, the birthplace of the Canadian Northern Railway, is scheduled to be removed forever in Dauphin. 746 with Mackling and McGarry. We have an extra pair of tickets for